Applied behavior analysis asks us to take a minute and think about how we're going to replace that behavior, what we're going to replace it with. Reactive dogs, we would rather have them be attentive to us, right? Walking next to us. That's the replacement behavior for reactivity. So let's talk about lunging, pulling on a leash, right? There's a squirrel, let's say. Okay, what about taking a toy and flirting it around on the ground, or throwing a ball, encouraging the dog to chase, to bite, to lunge, all of that at that time. That way, when we get around a squirrel, we tell them no, leave it. Okay? This is applied behavior analysis. So it's going back, it ties very nicely into the ethology part, where you have to understand what your dog wants naturally. You fulfill that, and then you discourage unwanted behaviors. You've got to go in that order, or you're just going to be out there wrestling the dog all day. And a lot of times we lose. Okay? Observe behaviors, interpret behaviors, then design a plan to either encourage or alter those behaviors based on your needs and wants. Some people want their dog to bark at people. Single women in a tough neighborhood, good job. Let them know you're here. And that's okay. Most people are familiar with positive reinforcement. We're going to take those words, we're going to break them down a little bit, because before we just jump in and start talking about what they are, you need to have the definitions right. Positive, let's start with that, does not mean good in this situation. Okay? It does not mean good. What do you think positive? Think mathematically. Positive means addition, adding something in. It's neutral, but positive is adding. Okay? Negative is subtracting, taking something out. It is not bad. Okay? I'm going to give you the quick version of this. So once we realize that positive is addition, negative is subtraction, let's look at reinforcement. Reinforcement simply means to encourage a behavior. Encourage something, right? That's what reinforcement is, to encourage a behavior. Top right is negative punishment. So punishment, what do you think that would be? If reinforcement is to encourage a behavior, punishment would be to discourage a behavior. Okay, you with me so far? So now, with a new understanding with an understanding, a basis of what those words actually mean, positive reinforcement is very simple. You're adding in something that will encourage a behavior to happen again. And those things can be, you can add in what? Food, a toy, handler praise. That's pretty much it. One of my favorite learning quadrants that is widely underutilized is in what we consider phase one, when we're first starting to work with a dog, is negative punishment. Because that sounds bad, doesn't it? That's about as bad as it's actually fantastic. A great example, I've got a little puppy. I get to see them a lot. It's great. One of the perks of the job. If I'm petting the puppy, it's all good. I get down there, I get low, and I pet the puppy. The second that dog jumps on me, all the affection stops. Negative punishment. Okay? If I have a pocket full of food and I'm, say, teaching the dog to just be calm, polite, and attentive, which is words we use around here a lot. That's like lifestyle training. The dog should just learn to be calm, polite, and attentive. I don't have to do anything fancy. I've got my food. I've got a dog sitting here just looking at me, calm, polite, attentive. I give him a piece of food. Give him a piece of food. It's simple. Most people ignore the dogs when they're doing really well because they're just hanging out. But then when they start doing something wrong, then we jump up and give them all the attention. Okay? Calm, polite, and attentive gets food. Now, the dog says, okay, I like this food. I want more. I'm going to start jumping and scratching a little bit. The food is still available. It's still here, but it stops. The second the dog says, okay, jumping, scratching, barking didn't work, and they stop, you know what happens then, right? Food. Do you see the learning can be so strong and so clear to the dog when you understand what quadrant, when you understand where you're at. And this is a cycle. You see those are arrows in the middle. The dog is always on this. Always. You're either encouraging a behavior that you like, or sometimes, I see a lot of people petting the dog while it's jumping on them, and then they're paying me thousands of dollars to stop the dog from jumping on people. So, when you understand that the dog is on this cycle, and then you tap into the reality that there doesn't have to be a lot of space between the quadrants. So I'm telling you, the second the dog stops jumping on me, I pay the dog. The connection starts to become really clear. Now, positive punishment. Let's talk about that. Again, it's something that may give people like just, there's a whole world of dog training. There's like a divided half of the dog training community that is purely positive training. So I find that to be dangerous. I think that just like kids, dogs need to have clear rules, boundaries, and that there can be consequences. Now, that does not mean we're going to be harsh or abusive or mean. So what we do is we've studied and we've practiced how can we introduce positive punishment to a dog in a way that's not going to have bad side effects that we feel good about and the dog is learning. Okay? Positive punishment. An example, when we are now teaching the dog that there can be consequences, along with, and this is just, like we'll cover a couple of them, there's a large number of ways that you can influence a dog. I'll give you some examples. What we're going to use today is the leash. That is our most common tool. That is like the Excalibur of dog training. That's your leash handling is paramount in dog ownership. Now, we do bring dogs in, we train them, and then we go to the remote training collar, but we still want to educate everybody on leash. That's why we're here. The leash is going to be our tool of choice today. So, along with the dog now starting to learn that the food stopped or the affection stopped, they're now going to hear the word no, and they're going to get a little leash pump, we call them. They're going to learn that they can feel pressure and stop what they were doing, and as soon as they stop, they get food again. The affection starts. So we don't wait until the dog's outside chasing a squirrel to say, okay, now we're going to correct the dog. We teach the dog what no means and what a correction is. You with me? It's fair this way. I'm a very firm and strict dog trainer, but I'm very fair to the dogs. And I won't hold them accountable for something if we're not sure that they understand the process. Okay? So, positive punishment. You can use a leash. You can use a remote training collar. You could use spatial pressure, which is not actually physically touching the dog at all. But if I want to teach a dog a boundary of staying on this rug, if they come off, I can step in and use my body language to kind of give them an idea of, okay, I need to move back. Now, I'm careful when I teach that to people. In the wrong situation with the wrong dog, you could create conflict. And we really try to minimize conflict in our training. Okay, negative reinforcement is one that's an example of that. That's when you remove something, the negative part, you remove something in order to encourage a behavior. Okay, I'll give you an example. If I want to teach a dog to sit, and I'm using the leash, and I'm pumping the leash a little bit, When the dog sits, I stop. Okay? So they were getting an experience, they were feeling some pressure, and when they sat, I stopped. They're more likely to sit because that gets the leash pumping to stop. So what's neat is you're on this cycle all the time. Okay?